Okay, after you hear this interview with Len Stage, you're going to want to run out and get this book, because I did. As soon as we had our conversation and I started to think about it, I thought of a few people I knew that needed this book. He's written a book called The Brotherhood of Wone, and you're going to say to yourself, Wone, what's that? And let me tell you, once we get into this, I think you're going to be very surprised at what is revealed. Len, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So let's talk about, first of all, what is it? What is the book about?
The Brotherhood of the Wone is a kind of a different sci-fi idea. It's about a group of people that go to Belize to find out more about a piece of a priest's robe that was in a museum, and nobody knew what it was. So it ended up in the hands of museum, I guess is the best word for it.
Yeah.
And there's a woman that worked in there that had to have it. Her name is somewhere on this piece of paper. Anyway, okay. It doesn't matter right now.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. She's a character, and you talk about that she has to have it. And why does she have to have it?
Because nobody can understand it. It's written in a different language than any of the ancient native groups that were lived in that area, like the Belize, like the Toltecs.
Oh yeah, the
Mayans.
Toltecs. I love that. The Mayans. So that's where you're putting us in that space in history, so we understand. And what is the Brotherhood, and what is the Wone?
The Brotherhood of the Wone didn't actually occur until halfway through the book. They were looking for the god that these people were worshiping. They didn't even find out that there was a special god until they found the first pyramid. And when they finally found the opening to the pyramid, they got in and they found a stele in the middle of the pyramid that told the history of this god. And then they were so into it they couldn't stand it. They went looking for the grave sites so they could find out what exactly happened. And they found the grave sites, all but the one that was important, the actual home of the Wone. And they were sweeping and messing and reading and trying to figure out which one was a real one. And Lon, the fix-it man that had been invited along, got tired of this. He was impatient, so he decided to go off further and see if he could find anything else. So he went off and he was doing it again, sweeping and looking. And he sat down on a rock and leaned back to rest and triggered a release to a doorway and started dropping through the rocks. And he finally learned after a bit that it was 300 miles he dropped down to the Wone's home. And it disturbed him so badly that he was actually passed out for a week down there, just floating in a circle without gravity or anything around this Wone. And when he woke up, he says, "Where am I and who are you?" And the Wone answered him, but mentally. The Wone can't speak with a mouth because he doesn't have one. He's a bright, glowing light, and that's all he is. We learn further on in the beginning of the next book, they don't actually leave their home. They can't. If they leave it, they'll evaporate into the air because their gravity on their home world that they were on was much different. And they're made so that they can live in space. And they can't stand the harsh environment of Earth on top. So they communicate through people that they bring to them or accidentally find them, and they're joined to them. So the people actually go on the surface and they can talk to the Wone, and the Wone can sense everything they see and hear, and they're happy that way. And the offset is the Wone gives the people special powers. And if he chooses the people, he chooses only good people because he wants good things done with his power, because they're a malevolent race. They don't dislike or harbor any ill will towards anyone or anything. And they've been used for bad things, like the Aztec and so on. They didn't like people, and they wanted only their power, so that's all they chose to find out about them. Well, the Wone's able to bestow many other gifts on people, and if they choose you because of your goodwill, you learn and use every single power they have. And you can't join hard with only one Wone, but you can subjoin with many. But the more you subjoin with, And a subjoining is having two people join to different wands, and the second person can actually bring you into his family by repeating the joining process, which is real simple. You just touch the wand. Anyway,
wow, that makes that makes us all want to go out and get one. You know that.
Well, the people that want to do good for other people, there isn't a whole lot that really truly mean that. But the wands did give them the ability to become really bad people if they wanted to be, but they don't. So they venture around erasing their footprints and doing all the good they can do for everyone. Little jobs, big jobs, it didn't matter to them. They were in for anything that made life better. And that's what we should all be today anyway, is in for anything that makes life better.
Wow, so there's a real moral in this, to the story, this novel, The Brotherhood of the Wand. In writing this is kind of like sci-fi meets Indiana Jones. You got archaeology in there and history
Correct.
in there. What was that like for you writing this book?
Well, I started out not even knowing what I was doing, like today on this interview. You don't really know what you're doing until you just do it. I'd worked my whole life doing everything else. I worked at manual labor at every turn. I didn't think I had the ability to write because I'm dyslexic. And it took me to the 8th grade of school because I didn't understand dyslexia when I went to school. But I ran into a teacher in the 8th grade that did. And she taught me how to see things differently. And that allowed me to graduate school with a higher grade in English and literature and spelling and that whole program than I would have ever got without it. But my handwriting is still not that good, and spelling isn't that great, so a computer is wonderful for me. I can put everything on the computer, and it corrects everything I need to know.
Yeah, so there's another lesson in this, too, that somebody who was dyslexic, didn't think he could do it, did lots of manual labor, then finds out you have a special secret skill as well, and it's writing, and obviously you're passionate about it because the story continues, as you said, right?
Right. I'm going to start, as soon as things let up a little bit in volume, I'm going to start writing the other book. I've already started taking notes on what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and what I'm going to say in the other book.
Wow.
And the other book, they're going after a wand that's in Atlantis, and they're going to find it, but it's going to be under so much water and earth that's why that is a good reason why they couldn't hardly hear it, because it's so deep in the ground. And then they're going to find out that the wand doesn't try to get out, because if it did, it would die. And that's where we're going to bring in the evaporation point. The other, when they never thought to talk about with the other ones, there's 7 of them in the group, and they're joined to 7 wands. And the other people that were in the original quest for the robe didn't want to be joined. They're afraid of it. The 2 archaeologists, neither one of them wanted to be part of the group, and they were given ample chance. But it'll all work out for them.
I like that. That's a hint. Don't tell us everything. That'll all work out for them is your big hint, right? What do you hope?
Yeah, it'll all work out.
What do you hope people take away from reading your novel?
It's very different. I included lots of humor. I kept out the bigger words that kids could not understand readily, and I wrote it with no graphic violence and no graphic sex. Not that it's not mentioned and not that it's not implied, but it's not graphic in your face. So kids wouldn't be appalled by it, and neither would their teachers or parents. So I wrote it for kids. I figure probably 8 years old or up could read this. And I know that people will not be offended by it, because there's nothing in there to offend anyone.
Wow.
And I just hope they'll take out of it what I did.
Yeah, and again, as you said, because you've got more coming up, and so that continues, and obviously, as I mentioned, some of the lesson here is that for kids to take away too, that you didn't have to be labeled. You figured out a way around the dyslexia, and you actually wrote these books, which is tremendous. We got 30 seconds left. Tell me the best part about writing these books. The
best part is I used a skill that I developed in early childhood, before I even went to school, and that's to be a dreamer, to be able to stare out the window or stare at anything and just make up stories about it. And that's what I used to do, because I didn't have many friends because of my problem. So I used to create my friends and create the surrounding. And that's not a bad thing to do, because it leads to bigger things like this.
Exactly. That's the perfect place to end this. The Brotherhood of the Wand. Pick it up. Get it on Amazon and other places where great books are sold. Len Stage, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.